Good evening and welcome to episode 10 of the Humble Pursuit podcast. I am Bill and I'm joined in studio, aka at the farm, with Thomas. He's the big guy in the middle, and via Zoom with our other co-host, Tyler. I do not know how all this Zoom stuff works, but good evening, gentlemen.
It sounded very intelligent when you said
I'm
that.
not very intelligent.
I do not know how.
I was thinking about donuts at the same time. Good evening, Tyler, way out there in western Kansas, maybe?
I find myself in Iowa at the moment.
Oh, do we have any listeners in Iowa?
Do we have any listeners?
If I roll my windows down, I can roll my windows down.
Okay, but listen. Iowa stands for idiots out wandering around. Iowa.
Well, you definitely don't have listeners in
If
that
we
state
have
now.
listeners in Iowa, see ya.
Yeah. If our wives aren't in Iowa, we don't have listeners in Iowa. So
Right. Well, hey, we're joined. You can see if you're watching on the interweb, you can see we have a gentleman with us. We'll introduce him here in a minute. We're not even going to say your name yet.
Perfect.
You're not even here yet. But seriously, before we started this whole podcast journey, I don't even know how long we've been recording these. But before we started, made a list of 18 people that we wanted to interview. Some of them I got rejected on. I'm not bitter about that at all. I just think that the other two guys are wrong. But on that list of 18 people, we got to interview one of them on episode 6 of the podcast, Robert Cunningham. Awesome dude.
Yeah.
Awesome dude.
And the other 17 were unavailable, so
And
Joey was here for dinner.
and some of them were maybe unavailable. But on that list was Joseph Geringer, church dude. And that was my notes, church dude.
Church dude.
Awesome dude.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
It's not even your turn to talk, so
Okay,
you don't
right.
need to respond to it yet.
I will remain silent.
But anyway, you know, what the cool thing about this is we get to talk to amazing people like you, people that are, I think, are extraordinary, that share their life experiences, their struggles, their strengths, and their hopes. And that's where, you know, we draw a lot from that. We get our hopes, hope that we get inspired by that, and hope that we inspire others with that. Ultimately, what we want to talk, did you hear that? Ultimately, what we want to talk about is never settling, never giving up, living life with urgency. Man, we had a meeting tonight of dudes that has never been more prevalent in life right now. But live life to the fullest in abundance and face our legacy every day. So now I'd like to introduce Joseph.
How you doing, Bill?
Or you go by Joe,
I go by Joey. I
Joey.
go by Joey, yeah.
because you think you're a kid.
No, that's just, it's crazy. When I was a kid, that's the name I stuck with. And I was like, I'm never changing that. Joseph, it just seems too proper sometimes.
It does
you
seem
know what I mean?
proper. So I'm gonna start calling you that.
I mean,
Yeah.
we'll probably not hang out much.
Hey,
after
Tyler,
this.
don't be so quiet over there. Holler in every once in a while.
Okay, William, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if it helps, I've got you in my phone as Joey Mantine.
Okay.
Joey
Because
Mantine.
I didn't know his last
Nice.
My middle name and first name go great together.
Yeah.
Joey Man.
Joey
I like
Man.
that.
So we've had some people on here before, and one of the fun things that I like to do is it's fun for me, and I can't really care less if it's fun for you or not.
participating.
Okay.
This is the quote part. This is
Oh.
where you thought it was good
It
last
was your
time.
icebreaker.
Oh, we'll be doing that too.
I'm so proud of your
I
icebreaker.
like my icebreakers, but I like to find a quote out about people and read it to them and get their reaction. So here's a quote that I found that reminded me of Joey. And it goes like this: there's a storm inside of us, a burning, a river, a drive, an unrelenting desire to push yourself harder and further than anyone could think possible. Pushing ourselves into those dark, cold corners where the bad things live, where the bad things fight. We wanted to fight at the highest volume, the loud fight, the loudest, coldest, hottest, most unpleasant fight. And then ... And I seamed it with another quote by the same person that says, and no matter how much it hurts, how dark it gets, And no matter how far you fall, you were never out of the fight. And that was said by the lone survivor, Marcus Luttrell, who has an amazing story. But how long have we known each other, Joey?
A few years, I'd say.
Couple of years.
Couple of years, yeah.
That quote does remind me of you because, dude, just knowing, we might find out more tonight, we might not, but knowing some of your story, you fought and you've overcome a lot. And now one of the things you do is you go into some of those dark places to bring people out, bring people to the light, bring people to God, bring people to the kingdom. And dude, I admire you for that. Thomas, how long have you known Joey?
Well, ever since we've been out here doing this, so maybe a year or two. But yeah, I think the thing that when I thought about you and being on here was, I don't know you personally as well as I don't think Bill and Tyler do, but just from what we've shared when we have dinner and everything, it amazes me how you bring people together. And so when I think about you, I think about a fisher of men, somebody who's bringing guys together and pulling them out of where they are to, and raising them up to a better place. And that's something I've always admired about what you share and the people that you've brought. That's how I know you.
All right, Tyler, before we get to the icebreakers, how long have you known Joey and what do you think?
I think the winter of 2017 or spring, beginning of 2018. So 3 years. It's funny. The icebreaker I have in mind and the quote all seem to go well. And now that I think about it, it's kind of how I started getting to know Joey. Was talking to you about your desire to start a gym, a boxing gym, or probably more mixed martial arts, something like that. And because you got that in your background, maybe we'll hear a little bit about that. But it does seem like you do have this fight within you, like Billy was reading. But you've taken that fight, and it's probably been a more than just in the past couple of years. But it's been a pivot from the conversations we've had was about like a gym and about what happens in that arena. And now definitely, like Thomas said, the fight that you have is how do I bring other people further along in their journey? How do I help set captives free? People who are wanting to go a better way in their life and helping them. Definitely a fisher of men. So it's been 3 years. Families getting to know each other and getting to know you as a guy I can look up to and follow.
Hey, before we go further, Tyler, we're at the Lund Farms right now. Did you buy this candle?
Is it one of those man candles?
It's a manly indulgence candle. The scent in the suit and tie. Is that something you purchased?
I think my generous father bought it as a fundraiser for one of my kids from gymnastics. So, but I do like the smell. I do like the smell. I can't deny it. I'm not embarrassed. All right, Joey.
Okay, wait a second.
What?
We need to find new friends. We can't hang out no more. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Icebreaker, rapid fire, go.
Okay, Joey. The icebreaker we have for you as a former boxer, wrestler, I have some quotes. Famous boxers. Can you finish the quote? I'm going to start it. And I want to see if you can finish them. Okay. We'll start easy. The first one is Muhammad Ali. Float like a butterfly.
Sting like a bee.
The hands can't hit what the eyes can't see. That's yeah, sorry. That's I didn't know.
I wasn't fast enough. Sorry. It took me a minute. But
Half
yeah.
a point off right there.
Okay. This one's Mike Tyson. I think you can get this one too.
Until they get hit in the mouth.
Everybody has a plan.
Oh.
They were interrupting. Bill was being rude. If you could go with that one more time, I'd appreciate it.
All right.
Bill was being Bill.
Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until.
I don't know that one.
Until they get hit in the mouth. That's what I just
Till
said.
they
Okay.
get punched in the face.
That's what I
Okay.
just said.
Which I think, connects with Billy. He often says, prepare on the hilltops for the valley. You can have a plan, but you got to be prepared, even when you get hit in the mouth. All right, the last one, actually, two more. Rocky Balboa. Every champion was once a contender that.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not knowing that one either.
Refused to give up.
Okay. That would go right
Alright.
along with today.
Yeah, never give up. All right, Muhammad Ali. I hated every minute of training, but I said, what did he say to himself? Don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion.
Okay, since Tyler's thought out, well prepared icebreakers made you seem like you're kind of an illiterate loser, I'm gonna come out with
No,
some.
I gotta follow up. Hey, wait. I got something even better. All right, I got two Bible verses. Let's see if you can finish these. All right, Joey. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but whoever
Hates discipline is stupid.
hates discipline or correction is stupid. All right, that's good. What do you have, Bill?
Who's your favorite superhero?
I've never really been a superhero fan, but Spider-Man right now, because it's my son's, like everything Spider-Man right now. So I've learned to love Spider-Man.
Okay, we're going quick now. We're
Okay.
going quick because we're running behind schedule already. Who's your favorite Disney princess? Dude, you gotta have one.
Little Mermaid,
Ariel.
I guess.
Nice. If you had a boat, what would you name
Glory.
it? Glory. And last but not least, what's your favorite pizza toppings?
Jalapeno. Just go with jalapeno, dude.
Nice. Okay, are you relaxed?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
You're good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I want to start off by saying thank you guys for everything that you guys have said so far, man. That really, man, it was awesome. Thank you guys.
You're welcome.
We
Appreciate it.
just reflect what we're seeing. you know?
Okay, so we're gonna get started here, and I kind of went over with you, we're just doing a pretty loose format. But before I ask you the first question, I have to ask the serious question. What ranking are you in ping pong in this call right now?
Well, as of today, I held on to my number 3 spot. So, but the champ right now is just being real, backing out of all the championship matches. So, eventually they're going to be ready to step in there and we'll move forward from that,
Tyler, what number are you at?
Am I in second place?
You're in second place, yeah.
So I need to travel
And
more often.
finish this quote, if you ain't first,
You're last?
you're last. That was said by, I don't know.
By you. You notice he hasn't played me.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I refuse to play Thomas in anything.
so go on.
I played you in basketball one time and you kept making it from the other court side. And so I realized I can't shoot with you no more.
Well, I saw you shooting baskets a little bit ago, and that probably wouldn't have been too hard to beat you. Just saying. I love you though, Bill.
Note to self, find more new friends. Okay, so just a nice chill conversation. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I traveled everywhere when I was younger. I was born in Nebraska. And then before I was even old enough to know anything, we were in California, and I lived in California until Southern California in a small town named Fallbrook, which was right next to Vista. And that's back when skateboarding was a thing. And, I lived there till I was in 5th grade. And then we moved to Ark City, Kansas, which to me was a culture shock. I was a skateboarder and I moved to Kansas where they had cobble roads. So it was really difficult to be like, well, this is going to be a great move for me. So I saw skateboarding being something like I was going to do the rest of my life. And my dad's decision to move there broke that career move for me. You know what I mean? I lived in Kansas. I grew up I grew up pretty good. I had some things going on in my life that I think I don't like to sit here and mope on my story but we've all been through some rough things growing up, you know. My mom was in prison most of my life. You know, I grew up with a dad who I felt treated me differently for some reason, you know, but at that time I didn't really understand, you know. It took many years for me to understand what that was all about. But yeah, so I grew up in Ark City. I graduated high school down there and then went off to the military for 3.5 years.
Army, Navy, Air Force.
Army.
Army.
Airborne paratrooper.
So if I said half right face, front leaning rest position, would you know what was coming next?
Yeah.
Push them out.
Yep. down ups all day. So yeah, I graduated in 98, which was a pretty crazy thing for me because I never thought I would graduate, but I had a dad who pushed me and kept me going to school, which is important. Went to the military, became a paratrooper, did that for 3 years, enjoyed that, but didn't like authority. It's kind of wasn't my thing. I struggled with that. I thought, well, I get out of the military, people aren't going to tell me what to do. And then, you know, here I am in real life realizing that's just life, bro. You're always going to have people telling you what to do. Now I regret getting out because I probably could be sitting on a pretty nice military pension today on top of my salary that I make at work. So, but you know, we all live with those regrets and we move on. So I don't know, what is that enough?
Okay,
It's kind
so,
of,
so you went to military, you got out of the military, did jobs. You were a wrestler growing up?
oh yeah,
Wrestled?
yeah. In high school, I wrestled so I wrestled for Ark City Bulldogs. And if anybody is listening and knows anything about wrestling in Ark City, back when I was in high school, we were the winningest high school in the United States at wrestling. We'd won 13 straight state championships in a row.
They obviously didn't have a ping pong team.
Well, you know, ping pong wasn't invented yet then. But anyway, yeah, so you know, that was a pretty cool pivotal moment. So I'll tell you the story how I got into wrestling is I played baseball most of my entire life. My dad wouldn't allow me to play any other sports because he trained me all year round. That's what I did. Full-time baseball, you know, it didn't matter what league I was playing. Well, when I got into 8th grade in Ark City, I heard the hype about the high school wrestling team. So one day I snuck on the wrestling team after school, told my dad I had to stay after for school. And I snuck in on the wrestling team and I made the team and I started wrestling. And I remember when I told my dad, hey dad, I made the wrestling team. I need wrestling shoes. My dad says, my goodness, I'm not buying you wrestling shoes. I did not plan for you to be a wrestler. You're a baseball player. And so I remember going to 8th grade. It was so humiliating that I walked on to the 8th grade wrestling mat, my first duel, with a pair of socks on. Everybody else on the team had wrestling shoes. And I'm sitting back just, you know, with nothing. My very first wrestling match, I beat the school record in the fastest match, 8 seconds. By the time I had my second match in the duel, my dad had already went down, bought me a new pair of shoes and brought them to me.
Nice.
And it was from that point on, my dad was accepting to it because the deal then is in Ark City wrestling, if your kid was on the wrestling team, you were somebody, you know what I mean? So growing up and doing that, it was a moment for me to make my dad proud, you know what I mean? And I really worked hard at that because I grew up kind of rough with him being proud, but that was the moments that I seemed to get the most attention out of him. So I strived really hard at that.
And then you had some type of fighting career. What was that about?
Well, that all started. So later on in life, I moved to Colorado, and I was working as a general manager at Subway, and they had this Shaolin Kempo karate place right next door. And I went over there and I signed up, and I remember I started doing Kempo. And this is when the UFC started blowing up and it started becoming popular. And for some reason, I thought going to Kempo class was going to make me into this fighter. You know, I'm going to be a UFC fighter. This is going to be great. And it wasn't until I had my red belt. They wanted to give me my red belt, which is like the belt right before you get black belt. And they ask you these questions. They're like, well, so what's your goal with this practice that we're doing? And I said, well, I'd like to fight in the ring one day. And they're like, oh, well, we don't really encourage that. We don't want that from people in here. And I remember I'd invested, it would cost me a ton of money per month. It was like $200 a month to do this. And I did it for like two and a half years. And so it was that day I went home and I said, maybe I was approaching this the wrong way. And I Googled UFC training facility. And they sent me to a place called LA Boxing in Denver. And I remember that next day I went down there and I was like, hey, I want to be on the fight team. And if you guys don't know anything about fight teams, the fight team was sitting there watching me say, hey, I'm a Shaolin Kempo red belt. I'm pretty awesome. Put me on the team. And the whole team's looking at me. Yeah, we want him on the team. Yes, we do. And so they're like, yeah, we're going to give you a deal. We ain't going to charge you that much. You can sign up right now and start today. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to bust all these people up. And then, yeah, let's just say that was probably one of the hardest days of my life. You know, I remember going home that day contemplating whether or not this is what I wanted to do, because, you know, after taking butt whoopings all day, I realized like, this isn't going to be, you know.
What a valuable lesson though.
Everybody has a plan until you get
Yeah.
punched in the face.
I know that.
Absolutely. He said it right.
I actually saw on the internet today, somebody giving a quick talk, and he's like, one of the downfalls of boys today is that boys don't get hit in the face.
Yeah.
And they don't know what that's like. And boys need to be outside. They need to get their energy out. They need to establish dominance. And they need to get hit in the face. I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
boys need to get hit in the face. So I'm sure that getting that hit in the face a couple of times probably helped you on your journey.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, my dad was a very strict man, and you know, I dealt with punishment different than what most kids are dealing with today, and it's molded me to be somebody who has, you know, is a little more respectful than some of these kids are today. So I will.
So did you stick with the UFC?
I did actually. It's crazy because I went home contemplating it that day, and I'm one of those people that's like this is crazy that you asked me, and I was like, what about never quit moments? And as we get into this conversation, I'm realizing that I had quite a few of them in my life, because at that moment I had the decision to make whether I was going to go back in there and go try this thing out. And so I went back in and I remember at the very beginning it stunk because every day, like, I didn't get no upper hand on anybody. But I remember I just started making small goals. I'd say, okay, today I'm going to make sure one person doesn't tap me out the whole day. And then I just kept creating these goals. And then before I knew it, I was like the team leader on this fight team, and you became friends with the coach and was training partners with the coach. And before I know it, I was sponsored within the first year, and the gym had hired me full time to be a fight coach. And dude, it was just pretty awesome how I was just like, you know, instead of aiming big, I aimed small and just created these small goals to get to the point where I wanted to be.
Wow. Joey, that's impressive. How do you still do that in your life now? Have you learned that lesson and been able to apply it in other places?
You know, as we sit here and talk, I really didn't even think about it until today. It was, you know, brought up that maybe I do it unconsciously. I didn't really think about it, but I think maybe it is something that I do unconsciously. But maybe if I'm mindful of it, I can create goals like that throughout any tough situation versus trying to tackle the whole situation at once. I think this is awesome because it's been a while since I've been back into my past with anybody about this stuff. And maybe there were lessons there that I can use today that maybe I should put in effect a lot more than what I do today. You know, I think there's a lot of things in my life that I do that though, because you got to be realistic. Do yes, Bill. On the podcast, I did say that.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a PG-13 podcast. You can watch it. You know, but one thing seriously on that note, I have found I'm the elder of the room, I believe at 50. And I am more today like my 13-year-old self than I've ever been in my life. You know, some of those lessons that we learned, we forget them along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, being able to tap into that's a pretty cool thing. Well, you kind of segued into the next thing that we were going to talk about, and that's just laid out here simple and put it on the table. You know, what is a never settle, never give up moment that you think shaped you in your life? And I know that you wanted to give this some thought, and my advice to you was God's going to provide what he wants somebody to hear today. So floor is yours, no pressure.
I think my biggest never quit moment was, you know, tackling the whole recovery life of getting clean off of drugs. I throughout my entire life, I found myself wrapped up in drug addiction. And I was talking to some guys today about most people use drugs for this coverage of pain and stuff like that. And I remember thinking back to when I started doing drugs, and it wasn't that way for me. It was kind of like this. It was like a kid looking at, and not to use this as a reference for the Christians, but when you're a kid, if you look at a carnival and you look at a church, which way as a kid are you going to run to? And for me, that's how I went towards drugs, because to me, that was fun. And so I got into this drug addiction in the very beginning because it was just exciting to me. And, so for the never quit moment, it was when I got clean. I tried to get clean so many times in my life. I wouldn't even say I tried. I made people think that I was going to try to get clean for many times in my life because I was a people pleaser. And if my dad thought I was getting clean, he would react to me a little more, or my mom or any of that. But so it was 4.5 years ago, I decided to get clean, and my wife had already got clean and was clean 4 months. And it's kind of like that thing with the fight team, my wife got clean and everybody said, you're not going to be a dad to that child. You're not ever going to get back with her. And I unconsciously, I started putting goals out there. I'm just going to move away from where I'm at. I'm going to get into a sobriety house. I'm going to do a program. I'm going to start going to church. And I started putting all these small goals in there. And, there were so many times in the midst of quitting that addiction that I just kind of wanted to give up because things seemed so much easier the other direction. But when I looked at my child at that time when I got clean, it was just Wesson. And I was able to you look into his eyes and know, because if for some of you guys that don't know me, I have an older daughter who I dragged through that entire addiction. But when I looked at him and I realized, like, no child deserves that, dude. And I still live with those things with my daughter, but I realized that it was a quitting moment, but I had to never quit. I had to quit drugs, but never quitting drugs, which is kind of a weird thing to think about. Because when you guys asked me that, I was like, well, I was a quitter my entire life, dude. You know what I mean? Quit life. But I had to never quit at quitting. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's just kind of weird when I started thinking about it. So, for me, it's really weird. When I found God and I put God in my life, it was for all the wrong reasons. I remember when we first got clean and we moved here and I started putting all these cool things in my life. At some point, I realized that a lot of them I was placing there as manipulation tactics. So when I started going to church, my main reason was, well, if I go to church and I'm telling my probation officer that I'm going to church, and I tell my dad I'm going to church, and I tell my mom I'm going to church, everybody's going to get off my back. And so when I really look at that today, I was trying to manipulate God, and in the act of that, he turned me around. So it's crazy when I look at it, because I remember when I first started going to church, I was like, yeah, this is just Sunday, show up, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. We'll get everybody off my back. And then it was like, before I even know it, I turned around and I was like, well, I'm really kind of liking this stuff, So
I think a lot of people go to church for the same reason, whether they're in addiction or not. They go there because of the image.
yeah,
They go there because of what they want to portray to the other people that they're with or in their life,
yeah,
not because they're something inside of them is calling them to go.
yeah.
So at what point in time then did you let Christ in? I mean, what, was there kind of a moment, or was there a time during this recovery phase, or I mean, when did you really get that in your life?
Well, I've thought about this many times, and there's not an exact moment for me. It just kind of, I was sitting around one day and I remember just going back and thinking, well, I kind of like this God thing. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't like anything in particular. I'm going to tell you, a lot of it I know is God through other people. It's because I remember when I first met Tyler, it was around this time, and it's same with Bill, and just seeing them and how they were with people. I wasn't used to that in my life. You know what I mean? back when it's crazy, back when I was fighting in boxing, like you would think, man, that guy had tons of people around him, but it wasn't that way, really. You know what I mean? It was kind of crazy that I tell people I was the loneliest that I ever was in my life when I was at star status. You know what I mean? Like I had the opportunity to be on the UFC and like I just felt so lonely, dude. You know what I mean? And so I think that moment for me that I realized that God had came into my heart is when I really wanted to give that to other people, you know, and that's when I realized, like, well, if I got to have this thing if I'm trying to share it with other people. You know what I mean? I don't know if that hits the.
Dude, I mean, everything, I can relate to literally everything you said.
Yeah.
You know, I went feet first into addiction because it was fun.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And, coming out and finding God, for me, it was more of an aha moment, actually it was leaving treatment and I stopped and cried on the side of the road at a flower that caught my eye while I was driving by at 55 miles an hour. So I had to stop, reverse, and go look at this flower, and I bawled. And just that freedom and beauty that God actually represented to me in that moment.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm here. I'm all in. Where are we going? I don't know. But that and the loneliness with people around us. I can relate to that totally. And here's the funny thing about what I heard you say as well is that you saw something in some people that you thought that you liked, and that was something. I can't speak for Tyler, but I will. We see something in you that we want to be like. You're an inspirational dude. You inspire me. Your love of people, your compassion, your empathy is, man, it's an inspiration for me. And
You don't have to speak for me. I'll say it. You are an inspiration. I can see it in your life. This taking things step by step. And I think about the ministry that you and Sophia are living out right now. It didn't just happen overnight, right? You didn't wake up one day and say, I want to start doing Bible studies at the jail for people in recovery, and then just like or have a van and have a loads full of people that I'm taking to church each Sunday. You had that moment or that time where you started to realize, hey, this is genuine. I genuinely love this Jesus, and I want other people to experience it. And then you just started doing it, and I think it's been rewarded in terms of getting a van that you can do this with, having the connections to be able to pull off the Angels Project, which I don't know if you want to tell a little bit about it, but just a neat ways we've seen God reward just that heart. And yeah, you're the way you're a father. It's a good deal. It's good for us to be able to have that as an example. One thing I would say that I notice in you is in the way that you interact with guys is that nobody, even guys you're taking to church or really pouring into, would say, yeah, Joey considers me a project. No, like that you consider them a brother, that you're interested in them, and that kinship you have with them is really kind of inspiring to me specifically, that you just genuinely care about people, and not just I don't know, the outcome or how it looks. Like I can see that at Angels Project when you just sit down and talk to people. You're not just there to get up in front and talk. You're sitting there asking people how they're doing, connecting them to other people, and I love that.
I appreciate that.
Community. Let's talk about community, because that's a big part of your life, and brotherhood. Just tell us what is that in your life today?
Community is, for me, it's just being around people that are going through some of the same things I'm going through, because realizing at some point in my life that I couldn't do this all by myself, you know what I mean? And it's really crazy when we think about community, because I'm going to go back to the addiction thing real quick. The main reason that God was so attractive to me is because when I quit doing my drug activity, I lost everybody in that lifestyle. So I thought at some point I was just going to be lonely and I would have no friends. And it was really cool to come into the church. And I remember when I first started going to church, I told myself, I remember going in and not really knowing very many people. And my wife can attest to this. I told her, like, after the third time I've been to church, I said, every day I come to church, I'm going to walk up and introduce myself to somebody different. And my wife even found it in the game. She'd be like, let me pick them out for you. And she'd point across at the church and say, that guy right there. But it was really cool because as soon as I started doing that, that's when connections were made. And then that's when I realized that I don't have to live in isolation by myself anymore. And so community has been really important to me, because I think the community, we have power in numbers, dude.
Mhm.
And I think that's the main reason why I do the stuff I do when it comes to bringing people into the kingdom, is because in numbers, dude, there's not much we can't do if our hearts are set in the right spot. You know what I mean? Community is important because, I've struggled a few times, and there's been a brother that picked me up, and there's been brothers of mine that have struggled, and I had that opportunity to be a blessing to somebody else. And I think it's important to have that. If you got 3 friends, 3 people in your community, the blessings would be less. The more people you put in your community, the more opportunities we're going to have to bless each other.
Well, you walked that out about 2 hours ago around this table,
Yeah.
where a friend of ours
Yeah.
is sitting here in obvious pain.
Yeah.
And, you and Bill proceed to pray for him.
Yeah.
Right then, right when the guy needs.
Urgent.
So where would he be if he didn't have some people
Yeah.
to pray for him tonight? I mean, where would he have been tonight? I don't know. I mean, probably not in a good place based on the way, and it doesn't matter who it was. It's just, you're walking that. It's not just something you read in a book. It's not something you've heard about. You're living that out every day. And people need to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a journey together in brotherhood. And to use a Tyler Lund quote, well, it's not even a Tyler Lund quote yet. It would be a quote that Tyler Lund would say. I heard it on a podcast the other day. Somebody said, sometimes in life you find yourself on a journey, and sometimes in life on the journey you find yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, kind of goes back to where you are. Kind of lastly, what are you working on now, and how can we promote that?
So a few things that I've got going on, and we'll talk about the van first, because there's really, the way the van ministry started is back when Sophie and I first started going to church. It was crazy how it all worked out. I remember I used to tell everybody, if I had a vehicle, dude, I would go to church. I would go to church if I had a vehicle. And I'd said that in so many different places. And, people asked, do you go to church? Well, if I had a vehicle, I'd go to church. And there was a guy out at New Covenant that I talked to at one point, and he heard me say that, called me like 3 weeks after I talked to him, and he says, the church wants to give you a vehicle.
Nice.
And I was like, dude, you got to be kidding me. You know what I mean? And my wife and I were riding the bus for the, first year we were clean. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. There's got to be a catch to this. And I went out there and they were like, no, sign the title over in your name. Here you go. Took it home, put a battery in it. That car, I'm giving it to my daughter this weekend for her birthday. The same car they gave me, you know what I mean? And so when that all happened, I remember it was shortly after Angels Project started. I'll get into that here in a minute. But I was talking, I said, I would really like to start a ministry, because there was a point in time where I wanted to go to church and I wasn't able to, and I had no means to do it. And it wasn't 2 days later, somebody came to me and he's like, God told me I need to buy you a van. And I said, are you sure? He's like, bro, I asked the same question and God said, I need to buy you a van. And so I said, well, if that's what you feel God's telling you to, we would love to take that on and use it for what it's supposed to be used for. He's like, I don't really care what you use the van for, but God told me I need to get you a van. And it was like 3 days later, he dropped the van off at my house, put it in my name. And from that point on, I was like, when somebody needs a ride to church, even if it's not my church, I will get them to church. And that's kind of been my mission ever since, which kind of takes me into the Angels Project. So what the Angels Project is we've been doing this for about 2 years. I found the importance of Angels Project because in a lot of recovery-based programs, they promote higher powers. But, you know, and I did some research on this, and since 1938 and the program was created, it was created biblically.
Yes.
But since then, society has got their hands on it and taking God out of as much part of that as they can. And it's kind of sad to me because I think sometimes the system can be set up to fail people. And so our job is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and allow people the opportunity to hear of a higher power as great as our higher power that we have, which is God and Jesus. What we do is we go in once a month with the guys at the Serenity House. And what we do is we unify the churches. We bring a new church in each month. They come in with worship and praise. They come in with testimonies. They come in with a little bit of a sermon on hope. And we come with food, you know, and when you feed people, that usually brings people. And we've noticed that. But the most important thing I think about it is the fellowship. We actually get to sit down with these people and see where they're sitting at in life. I got certified as a Kansas certified peer mentor about 1.5 years ago, which gives me the opportunity to give these guys resources, line them up with jobs. And since doing the Angels Project, I've actually linked up with a few companies in town that are second chance companies. Like they don't care where your past was before, they're just looking at the future, which gives me the opportunity for these new guys that come in the house. If they say, hey man, I need a job, I went everywhere to apply, but nobody wants to hire me. I'm like, well, I know a place where I can get you set up with an interview and you can tell them everything about your past and they're not going to look at that real bad. They're going to look at you to see where you're heading in life. Because and I go to a blessed meeting, which I think Tyler's familiar with, where you meet up with a lot of business owners. And I've actually been able to give my testimony there, which has given me the opportunity to reach out to even more businesses. Because if we're Christian-based businesses, we should believe in second chances all the time. And regardless if they fail, we still give second chances. You know what I mean? And so since that ministry started about 2 years ago, it was about 1.5 years ago, we were like, we need to get in the women's houses and do this too for the women. And it's crazy. We did everything in our power. Remember, I say that in our power to get our foot in the door with the women. And it was really nuts. One day, they come knocking on our door and was like, dude, when are you going to come over here and do this for the women? And we're like, we've been trying to. And the ladies down at CKF, the treatment center, had actually arranged it to where they pull everybody from the Ashby house, bring them over for 1.5 hours every day. And the women are doing the same thing with the women there. You know, as far as employment opportunities for them, we're still, like I said, this is a second month. It would have been yesterday was the second time we got in there. But I see God doing real big things with that. And we're just trying to spread the word, dude. You know what I mean? Like that's all we really care about. We go in there and I've come to I remember when I first started going, I was like, numbers, I want numbers. And I've realized that it's not that. It's the one person that is receptive to the message that really means the world to me. And it's just really cool. There's a lot of people. One of the guys sitting here at this table tonight with us having dinner was one of the guys that I pulled up at the Serenity House. He was in his house shoes. And I said, you want to go to church? Man, I got to get ready. Get your shoes on. That's all you need. Let's go. And he's been involved with Angels Project. He's had a job at the company. He's actually one of my employees and really impressive individual. And I like working with him. He's a great guy. So it's working for some people. And I love that. You know what I mean? When you see those success stories, that's where the joy lies in, you know?
And you guys are going through and having that, gonna have that into a 501 C3. I looked to the smart person for that. I didn't look your way, T.
Talking about the nonprofit
Yeah,
stuff. We are working
on that.
we're working in the process to become a nonprofit. We're actually in the process of expanding beyond Salina because we think it's important. What the main purpose is to bridge gaps between addicts and churches. There can be such a gap there sometimes that when an addict walks into church, they feel judged, and sometimes they are judged. But what we want the church to know is that these are the people that Jesus died on the cross for. We should be open arms to these guys and bringing them into the church and creating, like, what better way to see the glory of God when you watch an addict walk into your church and 3 years later, they're redeemed and they're changed and they're doing things for the Lord. Like, that's where the glory is seen. A lot of people are just focused on the in-house stuff. And I'm like, you guys should be opening your doors to this, so, and we've had some really good reactions from the churches with it. The ones that have volunteered to come in, they just love the opportunity. We're helping people get to their church that normally wouldn't go to their church, which is creating, just, I don't know. It's just awesome to see God working in all this, we're just kind of standing back and doing the things he wants us to do,
Now you guys have a website or Facebook page?
We're in the
yet?
process of building a page right now. We were gonna have somebody do it. They attempted to do it, weren't very good at it. So I think we're gonna end up starting to pay somebody to build us a website. So
I think that this is the exact order that things should be done in. Start transforming lives, doing all this stuff, and then, we need a website. That it seems like a lot of people do it the other way around. We're going to start something. Let's get a website. Let's get an organization formally filed with the state of Kansas. And I love it, Joey. This is what a great way to show people, start doing it first and then figure out a name for it afterwards. Pretty cool.
yeah, we never even really thought that at some point we would be a nonprofit. We never really even thought that we would at some point want to build a website. I remember when we first started, that was nothing in our minds. You know what I mean? I want to share one more thing.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
The crazy thing with the Angels Project. Okay. When I first moved here and got clean, I applied at Express for a job. And that Express place led me to a job at Twin Oaks with a great man, Tim Oaks. Okay. And so when I started that job, I didn't realize that God's work was already in plan, because like at that point, I wasn't even really going to church. I wasn't even praying, but God's plan was there, because when I get to Twin Oaks, we start working there. They start having a Bible study at work, which is like really crazy. So I started going to this Bible study after I started going to church. And then when I go there, I meet a woman named Maria Henney, who's there. And off of that Bible study alone, the Angels Project was created at that place. She no longer works there, but like, we feel like the main purpose of that, all that was, because I remember at one point I was going to leave Twin Oaks and go to Cargill and work another job. And I told God, if you don't want that to work, then stop it. And it's exactly what happened. You know what I mean? Your background wasn't very good. And I said, well, I told you guys about everything and you guys were happy, but God shut it down. You know what I mean? So, and now a cool thing, and I don't really want to announce this too much, but our job is getting ready to start doing ministry at work, where we're actually going to give people release conditions out of county jail on the condition that they work there. We're going to create a transportation system to pick them up, bring them to work, take them back home, and be in ministry with them on a constant basis. And that's something that's just been brought up. And I was told, we want you to lead this. And I'm like, man, God's just putting all this stuff in front of me. And I'm just like, okay, let's do it. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that's going to be super cool, because I think, people get a job and they're actually released from jail. There's like hope in that right there alone. And if I can continue the hope with, God, or even if they don't want to accept that, but just with brotherhood, because I think we can reach people through just brotherhood alone. And I'm looking forward to that. So coming in,
So even if you don't have a website, if somebody who's hearing this and is like, man, inspired, wants to give you a van or something like that, you want to give out your phone number or email address or something? Or I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody's interested in any of that stuff, my number is 785-376-1727. If you guys don't mind, I'll promote a little thing. I actually just typed out a letter. Working on typing up a letter. I'm in the process of it, but what we're going to start doing is trying to get donations to continue to move forward with what we're doing. You know what I mean? Everything is funding right now at the moment. I just had a bunch of t-shirts made, so we're selling t-shirts to create some sort of income because there's fees to becoming what we want to become at some point.
I'm
So,
rocking the shoe. I got
so I appreciate it, man. But yeah, so give me a call if you have any questions or anything, or interested in what we do, or even if you want to volunteer or be involved, dude, we love that. You know, that to us is value more than money, is somebody's time and their love to these people that are struggling with something that a lot of Americans are struggling with today, you know?
So one more time, if I want to call you or text you something inappropriate, what was your number?
785-376-1727. And I'll be putting a block on your number, Bill.
If you're smart, you
You're
will.
one of many. You're one of many. Final thoughts, dude. You just blow me away. You know, you talk very small. Like what you do is not a big deal, but seeing somebody bust down doors of community and bust down doors of changing people's lives and dragging people through those doors and getting them into a relationship and caring for them and all this stuff you do, that's not small ball.
No.
I
That's
mean,
Jesus.
dude, that's Jesus in your
For sure.
corner. And man, every time I visit with you, I'm inspired, except for when I beat you at ping pong. And then I'm just a winner.
I've got you figured out in that whole aspect too. With all that said, I just, you know, I appreciate the compliments, but I just want everybody to know that it has nothing to do with me. I'm obedient. That's it. It's God doing most of this stuff, dude. Because I promise you, if I tried to lead any of this stuff on my own, it wouldn't make it to where it's at today. And so I thank God for the opportunity, and you know, he does guide me in certain ways that create awesome things to happen, man. And I just thank him more than anything.
Tyler, closing thoughts?
Man, so Lydia and I have at times thought of like a mission statement for us would be to satisfy the hungry and make the satisfied hungry. And I think that that's what Joey's doing. You know, you're out there feeding the spiritually hungry, and those churches that maybe are a little resistant to people, addicts, people in recovery that are satisfied, you're making them hungry to welcome them into their church. You're challenging the status quo in those churches. And yeah, man, keep it up.
Thomas, do you have a mission statement that you and your wife have come up for you?
I do not have a mission statement. I'm not near as prepared as Tyler is in my life. But I'll tell you, dude, it is.
You just do it.
And I'm glad you're on here because we want people to hear this type of thing. And because this is real stuff that's changing people's lives, and it's happening right here. And not everybody knows about that. So I appreciate you getting out of bed every morning and going to bat for people that they can't do it. It gives you hope. I mean, it's inspirational. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, and what you see before you are bags 39 and bags 40, of which Tyler got to have none of, our primal jerky. So did you try both of them?
I tried the pepper one. I
What do you
normally
think?
don't take your advice on stuff much, Bill. So I'm saying only when it's dire need, then I'll call you. But I think the beef jerky thing, I'll try one before I leave.
What did you think of the pepper?
It was awesome.
Fire, wasn't
It was awesome.
Fire.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
a friend of mine named Bo and his friend got together, and they've been in business for like a year now. This thing was born out of the house. So in a year, they went from, hey, we're gonna make some jerky in our kitchen of this house, and now 1 year later, they're in 180 stores around Kansas, have an online presence. They sponsor the #1 North American arm wrestler. His name's Michael Todd. I want him to come here because I want to see him beat Thomas.
I would like to get beat by this guy.
Would love to see that too. Anybody that can out arm wrestle Thomas, you have my vote for man of the year. They also sponsor race cars. Now, one of the reasons they've been in business for a year and they have an amazing tasting product is because they do things in small batches with 100% USDA beef. raised here in Kansas. They got a whole bunch of different flavors. Not even gonna go into them tonight. My favorite is the hot. Tyler and Thomas's favorite is the cracked black pepper. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. But if you want to check them out, they have a Facebook page at Primal Jerky, or you can find them on the internet at www.feedonprimal.com. In closing, I want to say thank you and for listening to our podcast. Thank you, Joey, for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We're trying to also build a little bit of interweb presence. You can listen to our podcast. Pretty much any place that has podcasts will have us. Thomas hasn't got us kicked out of many places yet. Not yet. We have a Facebook page that's a little bit active. It's at the Humble Pursuit Podcast. We have a Twitter page that I suck at doing. That's a hint, by the way. I say this every time that I suck at Twitter, and neither Tyler nor Thomas has volunteered to take it over. So I'm just going to keep on sucking. I hope you guys are happy with that.
We count on you doing that. That's
Okay.
your role here.
Well, my sucky Twitter page is at Humble Pursuit. But in closing, I want to say, remember, never settle, never give up, live life with urgency and to the fullest, in abundance. Face your legacy every day. The only day guaranteed, gentlemen, is yesterday. For Thomas, Tyler, Joey, myself, God bless. We're out.